Hey, well, welcome to the Dream Labs. Dr. Contrast live here. It's good to be back on board. And just before I begin here, Victoria, it's great to have you on board. Hope you're doing well, and neat stuff that you're going to be hanging on to today. And I thought I'd just kind of bring back to our remembrance, last Thursday, we did a series of things just putting together circles in perspective and how the mechanics of that began to work. And I thought, the more we got into that system of thinking about generating round surfaces and getting into circles and how they function, we began to go back in today and show you some application of that from a transportation perspective. Now, don't misunderstand. I think the whole concept of getting into circles and how they're constructed and how they're done properly, you can literally use them in any given discipline: architecture, landscape design, product design, illustration. It's endless. But I think I see an awful lot of things as I travel the country and do workshops, for example, that where you get into systems where the circles or the concept of getting round forms become extremely distorted, and it's tough for young people to get out of that habit. And even with staffs, I mean, I've worked with a lot of technical staffs across the country, and they have the same difficulty. They've been told they're ellipses, and they're not ellipses. Enough said about that. So I thought just all that to say that I think that little process of last Thursday was a good operation. I got a lot of good feedback on the mechanics of that operation, and also I just felt, well, today let's go back and look at an application here. So rather than get into a drawing cycle here, I'll do that a little bit near the end of the program. I thought I'd just bring in some instances here. So some of the work I've done for a variety of client bases and some transportation design. And what you'll see here is a variety of ballpoint pen, Prismacolor pencil, some watercolors, some marker pastel. It's all over the place. But the one thing I want to really focus in on here for all of you who are tuning in, Victoria, thank you, is this. There's a lot of collapse when you work with circles in perspective, especially in transportation design. Let me clarify what I mean by collapse. Look at this, for example. Look at how this front wheel and this particular three-quarter front is extremely open. As you move back, look how that whole thing collapses. It narrows down. And I think that's the big mistake we make an awful lot when we begin to illustrate these things, especially in transportation design. We have a habit of saying, okay, this is a full maybe 60, that should be a full 60, but not the case. As you go back in perspective, that whole landscape begins to diminish, and it puts believability to it. That your station point remains the same, but as you move back, the whole thing starts to twist on you a little bit, so that's what keeps this in proper perspective. And the same with this front three-quarter here. Look how open this guy is up front, and as you go back in space, look how we diminish that far side circle to make it really function here. So let's go through this whole portfolio here, and I'll just kind of walk our way through it and point out some interesting things in it that might be of some interest to you. So here's a little thumbnail study of some of the early concept sketches for the C8 Corvette, done just some time ago. I can't recall what date it was. We've been on that program for the last 30 some odd years trying to get a midship on the marketplace, what we finally did. But these are some of the early concept sketches trying to break away from the paradigm of Corvette with the very lumpy fenders and a little more sheer and more European with the design format. So ballpoint pen sketches. Here's a rear three-quarter study. Let me move this out of the way there so we can kind of see where we are there. There we go. I think that'll work. Rear three-quarter study, getting a little more adventuresome with some of the rear tail box graphics, lower upper, and a little bit more side view where we really crank the belt line up into a real high hip in the rear three-quarter. Some elevation studies here, getting into some scoop details. Coming pretty close in this guy right here, where all of a sudden you begin to see a little bit of the generation of that whole form of the side intake piece coming together. Some very sheer, a little bit too sedan-like here, obviously. But again, notice the roundness of, again, here's a good example here. Look at this sketch. Again, talking about this whole idea of collapse. Look how full this guy is. As you move away from it, look how thin that gets. That's the whole idea of how circles should work to maintain the accuracy in your perspective sketches. Now, does that mean, for example, that would be perfect? No, but the character should be such that we understand closest to me, it opens up. As it moves back, it diminishes. So let's go back and look at this sketch here. We're going to do a series of them. Some little color studies, again, get a little more organic with the thing, a little more flamboyant with some of the graphics, for example. Some very round nacelles. Again, side elevations, again, a rear three-quarter. Trying to get graphic with it and putting some color system into it. It just didn't really seem to fit the bill. But the idea, again, of getting this whole process down, of beginning to see how this system works. Fuller, narrow as you go back. And again, the most important thing about that aspect of getting into the idea of how to understand how perspectives do. I just checked out a car at Show Less We Have. Cool. What do you think? Did you like it? Neat machine. What's interesting about this whole process of getting circles properly is if you really go in, if you go down and look at these guys very, very carefully, that whole process, as Sid Mead once said, once you plant the wheels and do that correctly, everything else falls into place because it sets the proportion for the sketches up. So here we go. Let's go to another one here. some little 3/4 studies here, a little overhead engine intake, getting a little more dramatic now, out of 488 system on Pista, where we actually kind of pulled back some of the things and looked at it. A little front 3/4. Here's a good example again of how that whole wheel system works. Look how full that guy is. We move back, it almost diminishes. Really solid stuff to work with here. These are not the greatest sketches, don't misunderstand, but they're hopefully beginning to glorify or accentuate the idea of how circles work and why they set the format for proportions, scale, character, etc. in our sketches. Rear 3/4 study, slowing this guy down a little bit here and getting a little more of that some strakes and some tunnel effects and aerodynamic systems underneath the chassis and so forth. A little 3/4 study, a little more dramatic. Then going back, the change of pace here, doing some aircraft work. Again, it's transportation design, so this is a transportation system. This is some drone work done for the United States Air Force, just some thumbnail sketches, looking at different geometric, almost stealth-like processes and getting some stealth work done for drones. Again, not a lot of circles here, but again, the whole idea of perspective, part of the process as well. So there's a variety in this portfolio. So it's on all cars. So now back to Corvette. Again, look at how this changes, for example. Again, fuller, diminished, fuller, diminished. I mean, really exaggerate. This has turned just a bit, but it gives you the presence of the character. I was going to say, it looked like a Stella Global. Yeah, I mean, this one back here. This one back here, Victoria, this guy here, this page. Yeah, there's an awful lot of, I'm just intrigued by aircraft design, and I've always gotten into it sometimes. Maybe I should do a stream on just aircraft illustration workers. I've done one before in the F-35 Lightning, but I want to go back to that and maybe do some interesting things as well, along with that basic theme. So there it is. Yeah, I think that's what you're referring to here. So I'll just move along as we go here. Corvette, we've already reviewed here. There's another page of studies of getting circles to work for us in proportion and setting the scale of the sketches and the like. Here's a little overhead 3/4 front of what that process moved us out of the stream. There they are. Little overhead 3/4 perspective sketch. Not a lot of wheel graphics here, but again, perspective is really interesting how it all begins to link together and how it all begins to put the pieces together. You don't see tires here, but that tire is there. And if that width is correct, everything else is going to fall into place nicely. Let's move this over just a bit. This is a line study done for Audi Motorsports, the IMP car. I just started to do this, and I think I'll begin to finish it up here in the next couple of days or so. But just looking at some different surface work, and again, same process in the tires, a lot tighter, further open, much tighter as we go back. Let's go back into this guy. Here's some thumbnail studies for a little two-place machine we did for a company here in Chicago. They're looking for a little intercity commuter car. Very interesting little thumbnail sketches and how it all begins to put together. So I just started out with a series of little sketches like this, just some soldier studies, and getting some format down. A little perspective study here to kind of twist it a little bit. So and again with this one, so you can see what the actual format is doing. Very low profile, very interesting concept in terms of a two-seater piece, open cockpit in some areas, and some of the closed canopy, obviously. But just again, putting the drama together, really putting together pieces with circles and how they all begin to function, get proportion together. A little study here again, rear 3/4, how that whole upper piece rolls down into an aero fin in the cockpit area, a little support strut to take you through the machine into the front wheels. And we'll move along here very quickly. There's a little overhead 3/4 study of just some fender graphics and what that might look like when it all comes together. Again, notice again, very full. Turn just a little bit, give it some character. But again, fullness, diminish. As you go back, the count begins to diminish, and I'll show you that in a few moments in a sketch rendering form. I'll just do a real quick little study for you. So, again, a little pencil sketch here of front 3/4 and an elevation. Again, notice, very full, and then again, very minimal as you go back. And this is a pencil sketch, a Prismacolor pencil. Real fast, lucid, little maybe 3 to 4 minute sketch. So you got to put an idea down, working with circles. Again, a rear 3/4, a little front elevation, again, a little rear 3/4 of the sketch and how that begins to function. And so far, it's really been unique in terms of once that wheel pattern is set, it's amazing to me how you begin to use that as a dictation for widths, for heights, and you can cheat that proportion as well, which I think is really neat about understanding the system. And let me clarify that. I really don't fully understand it. I work with it, but what I've learned from it is to be able to use those wheel systems and wheel plants to begin to change proportion, stretch it, minimize it, increase the height, decrease the height, add the width, reduce the width. It all becomes part of the formula. And again, for success. A little pencil sketch here of some Ferrari work early on. LaFerrari, we actually come in the big floating fender, and again back into the sill system, back into the tail section, and a lot of drama changes in this car when it came to press from a manufacturer point of view and hit the marketplace. Little study of an MG. Every now and then I go back in the history of things and do an old machine, a little rendering study here, pastel marker of an old MGB. Interesting little process in the house in the background, just to kind of change pace a little bit. This was done for a whole series of things I did some years ago for the Indianapolis 500, some of the great marquees of Indy. This was one of about 12 pieces I did for Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Again, same process where this is the old Miller system and Miller Motorsports. And again, wheels open up and minimize it, and a little bit of the grandstands in the background to give it some character. So that was that part of that process. Another little IndyCar piece that was done, for example, this is the Indy 500 winner of 1928, and it was a fantastic streamliner at the Stutz Bearcat. Blackhawk, pardon me. You don't see an awful lot of that or hear an awful lot about this car, but it was a very unique, almost a steamer, almost harkened back to the days of the Mercedes-Benz streamliners and the Audi Motorsports and the Bluebird categories back in the 30s and 40s. So we brought it all back, and in 1928, pardon me, I take it all back. This was part of that same generation of racing machines. It just progressed into the 30s and 40s into Bluebirds, but that was an actual IndyCar competitor that set the speed record too, if I understand, 203 miles an hour in a throttle run in 1928. So a pretty powerful little machine. This is the obvious one here. This is a series of studies I did for Maserati some time ago. The birdcage Maserati, a very simple little sketch here, just an elevation. And that was Sterling Moss driving the birdcage. And I believe in this case, I think it was at the Nürburgring in Germany. There was a little illustration piece done. This is a photocopy of the actual piece. The actual piece was rather large. So this is just a study in the portfolio to kind of put that into some position. But back in the little ballpoint pen sketches, back to Corvette studies here again. Notice some of the early generation where we try to keep the same flavor of the Corvette with the actual fender blisters coming back into a little nacelle on the body side. Pretty timid looking approach, I thought, for the C8 as we see it today. And it started there with a very simple set of melodramatic, anti-dramatic pieces of let's keep the character, and all of a sudden it opened up, and then we've got to be much more competitive, and it ended up with the C8 we see today. Rear three-quarter study, obviously, same kind of system. Trying to get a little more Ferrari into it, and maybe not as organic as the actual machine. The actually C8 now that's out on the marketplace. And my preference would have been, when it was all said and done, I would love to have seen more of a rounder tail lamp section going back from the Harkin to the C6 series and so on. But too late to do that. There was a time for a change, and that's what took place. We were more to the actual almost Lamborghini type horizontals as opposed to the rounds that really dictated the Corvette's history as a mimic of Ferrari back in the 50s and 60s. So there we are, little ballpoint pen sketches. These are some transportation studies I have done for Ski Mobile firm up in what is it? Up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Skidoo. It's an interesting little series of sketches. They came to me and wanted some conceptual work on some future thinking on snowmobiles. So we did a series of sketches. And the reason I brought this in, for example, look at the gauge package here. Again, same process of circles, but how they begin to dictate what the perspective does. And if you would put drive lines through this thing, you would see that'd be your center line, perspective drive line. It all works together. So I thought this was a good little piece too to show you what this whole idea of like going back to last Thursday's explanation on the mechanics of the process of circles, then today's stream about how to apply that into product design. Little front three-quarter study for that same process. Very interesting set of outriggers and a floating canard system, pontoon fenders, and this little paddle piece to kind of stabilize it in the snow. Another little sketch of it, concept work. Another little piece of work for MG again, just a little study of value, looking at the possibilities of just what shape does and what color will do, and again the tire, the concept of tires. Very round, almost round, but just a little bit more, just a little narrower as you go back in perspective. This was done for Bentley. This is the Speed, the EXP Super 8 at Le Mans. Won 3 times. Terrific 24-hour Le Mans. Just a brute of a machine. And again, you can't see the wheels here, but those tires set up the perspective in terms of how to get the width down, how to get the height down, and how to get the length down. So it foreshortened it all. It all became, hey, how you doing there? Nice stuff. Nice color work. Oh, thank you very much. It's interesting how it all begins to kind of play together. Move that light out of the way. Let's get this down just a bit. Is that going to be okay? There you are. There you go. So Bentley, piece for Bentley. Turning the page again. This was done for Chrysler Corporation, a little two-place coupe off the Viper platform, but it never saw the light of day in this case here. But again, a little ballpoint pen sketch, a little bit of pastel wash. And again, looking at the system of working with wheels and how round surfaces and circles begin to influence what we see here. And again, this was done over here. We were approached by the Honda group, Acura out of Europe, to look at next generation, some Acura two-place motorsports, which became the NSX. This is some of the early concept sketches for that platform. Notice the intakes up on top, a la Formula One. Interesting approach to it. The twins, one on each side. That started the whole process moving for the whole process in that area and for a category in that manufacturing system. These are little pencil sketches done for Audi. These were done for the 8 Series, Audi 8 Series, big sedan. A little pencil sketch, and then again the transfer and a little bit of marker, a little bit of color to work with there to kind of put the drama into this thing. Really gutty looking approaches to it, and that was a dictation from Audi. A little less of the crate grill, a little bit of the rounds in it and so forth. Give us a little bit more of a meaty looking intake piece, meaner looking headlamps, and a more aggressive front end. So that was, again, notice again, the wheels, come back to that. Very tight, but again, a little tighter. It's not much, but it's there to give the right sense of perspective and scale when you move into the sketch itself. There's another page here. Another variation, turning it around. A little softer in the upper. But again, notice, even though there's a very minimal amount of distance between the span here, there to there, it's a little bit wider, much narrower. A little bit of a different approach here in this guy, where you actually a little more voluptuous in the front end system, less mechanical, less lethal, and into more of this approach where you actually open it up a little more. This came very close to some of the early studies that we did for the Audi 8 Series when it was becoming part of the platform for a facelift change in the marketplace. Let's turn the page here a little bit and go through the process. These are a couple of pieces done for some advertising for a firm here in town. Every now and then I get some information to do some Christmas cards. I don't know what they're in this for, but again, there's a big circle in the train system. That was an interesting little sketch rendering piece. Mettler Toledo always comes to me maybe about every year and wants me to do a Christmas card of some sort of transportation system or manufacturing system. So I just kind of opened it again. Little machines in here that had rounds in it, but it's not really as prominent as some of the things we're talking about here in terms of circles. Even in the idea of getting a perspective, for example, for interior design, much more difficult in terms of keeping the perspective correct, getting the circles right, or even the surfaces in the instrument pod, and then the gauges, AC system, and again, notice the wheels, much fuller, much more minimalized. This is an early study for C7, I believe, at that time. We would change over from the 6 Series, a little more drag, and kept some of the same character of the 6. We brought it into the 7, and as far as I'm concerned, I thought the 7 was a much more aggressive approach than what we ended up here. But again, it's a simple ballpoint pen, marker, and pastel sketched. Just got to get a mood down. This was done for ELF, Sir Jackie Stewart in the ELF four-wheeler. Interesting little composition. Again, notice a lot of activity, but still that same process coming together here, with the wheels being extremely minimal and just missing the rear tire as a part of the illustration. But again, that was a portion that was taking place in these little studies. And this one is this is Rene Dreyfus in the Bugatti Type 35 in the hill climb. Notice, I really kind of turned the wheel a little bit here, but it's real minimal. And if I could finish the last tire, it opens up just a bit more. Fun stuff to do. This is done for Bugatti, and some time ago it was the hill climb series that Rene Dreyfus was involved in that time period back in the 30s and 40s. And this is an illustration done for Alex Zanardi when he was with Target Motorsports. When I was doing an awful lot of work with IndyCar, they came to us, Ganassi's group came to us and wanted to do a commemorative piece for Alex. So I put together this little composition. This, again, is a very small variation of the final sketch. The final sketch was huge. It was about maybe 24 by 40. It's a large piece done for Zanardi when he won the Indy 500. And unfortunately, it went on some demise here with that tragic accident in Germany, and also the recent one, that head injury he received just very recently in Europe when he was driving BMW closed wheel systems. So again, notice, same process with tires. I mean, the whole idea for the stream is to really put the process together with what we did on Thursday, which was the mechanics of it all, and then today the aesthetics of it all, putting in the whole context of with transportation design, how to work with those tires and wheels in circles to get the proportions correct as we go through the whole part of the lineup here. Little study for Porsche 911, ballpoint pen sketch. Just put this all together here like that. We're in good shape. There it is. Little front and rear 3/4 on the 911S, the Targa version with a real gutty intake and so forth. Just a nice little pen study. And then I finished out a color piece that went to them. I don't have the record of the color piece. I didn't have time to have it recorded, but that was part of it all. This was done for Marlboro Motorsports, for Honda at the time, and also this is Ayrton Senna in the MP4 Honda. Nice machine, little thumbnail sketch, front 3/4. No real tire drama there, just a neat piece to add to it. And I think we're in here, yeah, this is done for a Lamborghini Aventador. Again, same process. But again, even though they're pretty compatible front to rear, there's still a little bit of change in the pinch there. And then coming back in with this, looking at a very full tire and a very minimized tire. Again, that I cannot stress enough how important it is to understand how that process works. Because what it does for you is the following. If the wheels are planted properly, a la Sid Mead, never forget him telling us this, if the wheels are planted properly, that sets the mood and the tone for proportion, width, height, overall length, and character of the car you're trying to deal with. And it's so true. If you miss something, for example, in the tire proportions, man, it just is an absolute killer. It just destroys the perspective. And the drama of the sketch is gone, the character's lost. So it's a very careful set of circumstances. Pardon me. What I mean by careful is not being cautious. Careful in the sense of knowing where the proportions are and how to set it all up makes an enormous difference. And boy, over the years, tremendously invaluable lesson in terms of putting together the right circles in perspective for transportation design, which is this stream is all about. Last but not least, we've seen that Bentley piece again here, seen that Stewart piece. This is a little study in contour and section work that was done for Honda, for a motorsports piece, off-road vehicle. We did this a little bit for them, and just to show them what the surfaces look like. And again with circles, how they begin to look at that cup holder container, variation 1, with another variation here, how it channels itself back out into the actual injected molded part. And again, it serves a little conical piece that comes back and changes section, and how those circles influence what the dies are going to look like, and how to begin to look at that from an engineering perspective to manufacture the part. Then last but not least, another little study here with the, let me move this over. Again, same set of circumstances, how to get those circles to work with the IP system for this off-road vehicle, this four-wheeler that Honda was doing, to kind of show where the cup container would be, how it would nestle into the forms itself. And notice we revised some of the shapes around the IP surface to accommodate what the cup holder was doing in circles. And that's another great aspect about having good dynamic circles to work with. You can change and alter the shape of forms by understanding how those surfaces work, which is, again, part of the process here. So let's do this. I'm going to wrap that up now. I just want to switch gears here for a moment. Last but not least, I want to show you a little trick here. I just finished this up last week. Hey, Desperado 004, how you doing? Follow. Thank you very much, Desperado. Where are you from? Whereabouts you from, Desperado? Just hold on for a minute here. What do you think, Victoria? Is this making sense for you so far? Coming along okay? Very cool. Boy, I really appreciate that, Desperado. Thank you very much for joining forces. They're great. First time chat, Desperado 004. Hello there, how are you? I hope you picked up the majority of the stream. If not, I'll do some review work for you. But thank you so much. I'm Turkish. Oh, thank you very much. Are you calling from Turkey? Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for joining forces here. Great to have you on board. If you have any questions as I go through this, feel free to answer them or ask them. I'll be glad to help if I can. But we're just kind of wrapping some things up on I'm good. How about you? I'm doing very well, thank you. But I'm really excited about the fact that you are on board with us. And thank you so much, Desperado 004. Very cool. That's a real thrill for me to have a conversation with someone in Turkey. So thank you. Last but not least, let's go back to this guy for a minute. This is another example. This is a watercolor study of Juan Manuel Fangio piloting the BRM V16 in the Formula Libra race in 1953 at Silverstone, England. And I brought this up, not for the benefit of being a watercolor, but again, I wanted you to notice you can convey and cheat perspective a little bit in the tires by the way you handle certain things. For example, notice the rear wheel very full, but the front's pinched just a little bit, just to kind of show a little bit of speed that's under some pressure. Those are little tricks that come along, for example, once you begin to work with this stuff over a period of time. You begin to advance the cause about how to convey speed, how to develop more of a character in the sketch. This is a very, normally when I do watercolor, it's a much more lucid, much freer. I've done both sides of the fence, so to speak. I've also done lucid watercolor work and very tight watercolor work. But it really is interesting that this one, I got a little bit tighter with it because I want to really convey a little bit more speed with that little squeeze in the front tire as opposed to the rear tire. This took about maybe from start to finish, just a wash in the line drawing. The sketch was already there real lightly. I kind of laid it in the watercolor from start to finish about maybe 30 to 45 minutes to get the whole thing, and just laying down some tape and washing in the ground plane. So, but I thought it was interesting to bring this along as a finished piece to tell you that things do not change whether you go lucid or tight. It's that same concept of getting those circles to correct it and doing it properly. It makes a huge difference. So let me stop right there, and we'll come back to that in a moment. But I thought we'd wrap it up by doing this too. Let's just kind of take a second here and begin to show you what this whole principle looks like when you do a little rapid sketch. I'm just going to do a really fast little marker sketch here and show you how hopefully this whole process begins to function with this tire geometry, pardon me, these circles. So let's start here. Let's put a little bit of ground line down. Let's chase it back, minimize it. Let's open it up. Let me stop there just for a moment. Look how we're setting up, for example. I'm good. How about you? I'm doing well. I think how we're setting up here, for example, the whole concept of getting this whole idea to work with us in terms of how to generate the circle properly, and then going again full force up front, and then minimizing as we go back. Hard to draw through this thing. In fact, if I took pencil, look what happens here. If I draw through this thing and get that scale to work with us, look at this. 1, 2, 3. And it minimizes and it results. It minimizes as it goes back. That's the thing that I really want to stress in the stream today about how that operates. Let's go. Let me finish this up for you, not bore you to death. Center line, the center line. just with a marker. Simple little sketch. As those of you who followed me before, I firmly believe that a marker is nothing more than a wet pencil. That's all it really truly is. And when you work with it very quickly and make decisions with it, it's just an amazing thing to go and to work with here. So let's do this, and I'll just kind of wrap it up by doing this. I'll come back in. If you want to tighten down some things on this guy, come back in with a drawing. Pardon me, I just put the paper here. And we'll take a little bit of a shot here and just get this guy up to speed and put a little bit of backdrop in it, a little bit of high contrast. Let's get this out of the way here. There we go. Almost there, gang. Thank you. Turn this aside. Get a little more of that wheel kind of tuned into there for us. Very cool. And last but not least, just hang on a second here. A little bit of tone to it here. A little finishing touch really helps to do the following. You come back in with something like this, you just kind of touch this in just a bit, blend it in, come back in, blend it in. blend it in, blend it in, and blend it in. And there's a real quick little study. It's in value. A little bit of shot together. There it is. A quick little study here, guys, on how the whole process begins to function once you get into the system of working with circle of perspective, how you begin to understand, for example, how this guy works. You open it up, then you close it down, you come back in and just start to really crank on some neat stuff in terms of drawing systems. And that does it for today, gang. I think a really nice job in terms of putting together a very simple application here from all the materials we did, for example, in the sketchbook, and what that really meant based on last week's stream. Again, on Thursday, we worked with the mechanics of how these circles work. And today we just kind of back and just opened up the book a little bit. So here's how it begins to function in my sketchbook or the portfolio piece. And hopefully this has been some help to you. And again, boy, I tell you what, Desperado 04, I really appreciate you joining forces with me today here. Great to have you on board. That makes sense for everybody, Victoria? Good? Are you guys good? Pardon me here. Good job. No, it's not easy at all, Esperanto. You've gone through this. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of practice time. But I'm really glad that you're joining forces with me here today. And we'll kind of pick up on some pieces on Thursday with some additional things from the drawing side of life, and begin to hopefully work you through the process and really have fun with it. So, boy, pardon me, I'm losing my voice here. That's better. So we'll get to the place where all of a sudden this thing will become automatic. But I just felt today it was really a good way to kind of pull back a little bit from some of the things we've done in the past, especially on Thursday of last week, where it was much more mechanical. This is much more aesthetic, and I just kind of walked us through some things. But the whole purpose of the stream is to understand how circles work and then how they begin to function at it, especially in transportation design. So for future references, I will be doing things like landscape design, architectural work, product design work. I just started with the transportation because it seems to be the one where most people have the most difficulty with in terms of putting it all together. So it was a good way to kind of put that piece together and wrap it up with a little bit of theory last week, and then the facts of being truthful and much more, for lack of a better term, much more aesthetic with this stuff today. So hope you have a great shot at it. And if you have any questions or concerns, Desperado 04 or Victoria, please feel free to drop me a note at my website at jim@drcontrast.com. Desperado 04, if you're looking at some very interesting to maybe help you with some drawing systems, on my website at drcontrast.com, all lowercase. You'll find a 9-program drawing section there that hopefully will be of some help to you. And let me know what you think, and drop me a note on my, as I said, on my email at jim@drcontrast.com. I would love to continue my following, so if you know of individuals who have an interest in doing this and want to pass the word, I'd love to have them join me. Thank you so much again for your time today, gang. And again, Desperado, look at my website. I'm on my website. You'll find my Twitch series, my YouTube series, and my Instagram series, in addition to what we're doing here. So thank you very much, gang, and I hope you have a great day. Take care of yourself. And I always close with this because I think it's extremely critical to do so, and it's probably the most important of the stream. Never forget to dare to be great, because you are. Thanks very much, gang. All the best, and take care. Thank you.